The following is a demonstration of the Forsus fatigue-resistant device, showing installation, reactivation, and removal using the Forsus Easy module. There are 4 general clinical requirements for the Forsus fatigue-resistant device. First, use either a 17 by 25 stainless steel arch wire or a 19 by 25 stainless steel arch wire, depending on your particular slot size. Second, all brackets except the lower cuspid brackets may be ligated with either stainless steel or elastomerics. The lower cuspid brackets need to be ligated with stainless steel ligatures. This will prevent unwanted rotation of the lower cuspids. Third, the lower arch wire should be securely cinched to control anchorage and mesial flaring of the lower arch. Fourth, the Forsus Easy module requires the use of a buccal tube with a buccally offset occlusal headgear tube on the upper first molars. One option to avoid contact with the cuspid bracket is to place a stop, such as a Gurin lock, distal of the canine. Another option, to increase anchorage on the lower arch and prevent lower interior flaring, is to lace the entire lower arch and increase labial root torque on lower anteriors. Installation. Holding the mesial portion of the Easy module body with Weingart utility pliers, insert the Easy module clip into the headgear tube, from mesial to distal, until it clicks into place. Pushrod installation. The correct pushrod size for the patient must be used. To measure the correct pushrod size, with the jaw closed, place the distal end of the measuring device behind the headgear tube and the mesial end of the gauge just distal of the lower cuspid bracket. The appropriate size pushrod is indicated. Note that the direct pushrods are in a left and right configuration and should be measured separately. After selecting the correct pushrod, place the distal end of the pushrod into the opening on the mesial end of the spring assembly. Then place the mesial end of the pushrod onto the arch wire, distal to the cuspid bracket. As a final check for correct pushrod sizing, with the jaw closed, make sure that the distal end of the pushrod does not extend distally from the spring assembly and that the spring is not fully compressed, with approximately 1 millimeter of activation remaining. The spring assembly length after the installation should be 20 to 22 millimeters in length. If the pushrod protrudes distal of the spring module in centric occlusion, it's too long. To secure the pushrod onto the arch wire, simply close the mesial loop over the arch wire. Check to be sure that the spring operates freely and is not in occlusion. Repeat the installation on the opposite side. Reactivation. To reactivate the spring assembly, use the split crimps provided in the Forsus fatigue-resistant device kit. Compress the spring so that the pushrod is exposed, and place the split crimp distal to the welded stop on the pushrod. Secure the crimp onto the pushrod. This will provide 2 millimeters of activation. If greater activation is required, more than one crimp, we recommend replacement of the pushrod with a longer pushrod. Removal. First, with the patient's mouth open wide, compress the spring and remove the spring assembly from the pushrod. Then, holding the distal portion of the Easy module clip with Weingart utility pliers, pull the Easy module in an occlusal mesial direction and remove it from the headgear tube. Pushrod removal. Grasp the distal end of the pushrod with your fingers, holding the mesial loop in place with your Weingart plier. Bend the pushrod to open the mesial loop and remove it from the arch wire. This completes this instruction on installation, reactivation, and removal of the Forsus fatigue-resistant device Easy Module.